Alright, let's get started with Lesson 1, Part 1, Elementary Particles. We're going to start out with this lecture by really looking at some basic ideas of the structure of the atom, more or less the modern structure of the atom. In the modern model of the atom, we have negatively charged electrons orbit a very dense nucleus that is formed by protons and neutrons. Almost the entire mass of the atom is concentrated in the nucleus of the atom. That's really important to understand. And yet the nucleus is so very small compared to the diameter of the overall atom. In fact, the diameter of the atom is more than 100,000 times that of the nucleus. So the nucleus is extremely small compared to the overall size of the atom, and yet most of the mass of the atom is found in that small nucleus. The rest of this space in an atom is taken up by electrons moving at inconceivably fast speeds around the nucleus. So if we blow up the atom to roughly the size of a major college football stadium by today's standards, an atom's nucleus would be the size of a small marble on the middle of the 50-yard line, and the electrons would be like the specks of dust whizzing around the outer stands. Everything in between the electrons in the nucleus is essentially empty space. So this idea of the modern atom is something you should be familiar with. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a basic diagram of the structure of the atom. In the center of the atom is the nucleus. And that nucleus is going to be composed of two small subatomic particles called protons and neutrons. The electrons are going to be moving around that nucleus at extremely fast speeds, almost the speed of light. The electrons in atoms are located in what we call electron shells around that nucleus. In this model here, we have two electron shells depicted, 1 and 2. And each one of those electron shells contains a certain number of electrons. For instance, in the first shell, there are 2 electrons, and in the second shell, we have 4 electrons out here. All right? So there's the basic structure of our atom. Alright, we're going to fill in this table real quick. Most of this you're probably familiar with. Now, the 3 subatomic particles that make up atoms, neutrons, protons, and electrons, have some characteristics that you need to be familiar with. First of all, the charge. Neutrons have no electrical charge. Protons, they have a positive charge, and electrons, a negative charge. The relative mass. Alright, now the relative mass is determined in AMUs. Now AMUs, write this down, stands for atomic mass units. Now an AMU is a made up unit by chemists or scientists in general to kind of give us a relative understanding of the mass of the atom. So for the proton and the neutron, we assign them both 1 AMU. The electron, on the other hand, being so tiny, in reality, the electron is about 2,000 times smaller than the proton. And that number there, that fact, you should know. So write it down. Again, the electron is 2,000 times smaller than a proton. And the neutron and the proton are roughly the same size. So they're both assigned the 1 AMUs. Location, we kind of just went through that. The neutron and the proton are both found in the nucleus. and the electron is found in the electron shells. Alright, so this was a very short lecture video, and that's all for part 1. And so we'll pick up the rest of this in part 2.